The immense council chamber glittered with 1,000 points of light, each representing a star system bound by the galactic accord. At the center of the chamber, Captain Elena Diaz stood alone on the petitioner's platform. Her blue Earth Defense uniform, a stark contrast against the shimmering backdrop of assembled dignitaries. She kept her posture rigid, refusing to show weakness despite the weight of 3 billion human lives resting on her shoulders. "The Council's decision is final," Ambassador Kareth announced, his scaled face impassive beneath the ceremonial headdress of the Zirian Imperium. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a gesture of finality among his kind. "Humanity has expanded beyond its allotted boundaries. You have developed artificial intelligences beyond permitted parameters. Your military vessels have violated sovereign territories on 17 documented occasions." Captain Diaz stepped forward. "Ambassador, I request the Council reconsider. Each of these incidents has a reasonable explanation." "We have heard your explanations," interrupted Councillor Vexna, her translucent tentacles rippling with bioluminescent indignation. "They do not satisfy." Kreth raised a clawed hand. "The vote has been tallied. 216 worlds in favor, 47 against, 32 abstaining. Earth and all human-occupied territories are to withdraw beyond the 100-light-year exclusion boundary within 1 standard galactic year. Failure to comply will result in enforcement." Elena's heart hammered against her ribs, but years of diplomatic training kept her voice steady. "The 100-light-year boundary contains barely 12 habitable worlds. You're condemning billions to fight for resources on a handful of planets. Your problem to solve, Captain," Kareth replied. "Perhaps you should have considered the consequences before allowing your species to multiply beyond sustainability." The chamber erupted in a cacophony of agreement, whistles, clicks, and translated affirmations bouncing off the vaulted ceiling. Elena scanned the faces of the alien delegates, searching for sympathy and finding none. Even the Arcturians, longtime human allies, averted their compound eyes. "This ruling is recorded," Kreth concluded. "This session is adjourned." As the lights dimmed and delegates filed out through dimensional portals, Elena remained rooted to the spot. Only when the last counselor had departed did she allow her shoulders to slump. "They've made their choice," she whispered to the empty chamber. "So have we." She touched the communicator embedded in her wrist, activating a secure quantum channel. "Diaz to command." The vote went as expected. "Initiate Operation Compliance." She paused, steeling herself for what would come next. "And inform General Liu. Activate Second Dawn." The response came immediately. "Acknowledged, Captain. Return transit arranged. Welcome to Exile." As Elena turned to leave, she caught sight of her reflection in the polished black floor, a solitary figure dwarfed by the vastness of alien architecture. For a moment, she saw herself as the Council did, a dangerous anomaly in their ordered galaxy. "Let them think that," she thought. "They'll thank us later, if there's anyone left to thank." General Marcus Liu stood before the holographic display in Earth Defense Command's underground bunker, watching the real-time evacuation of Nueva Esperanza, humanity's farthest colony, at 98 light-years from Earth. The settlement's 10,000 inhabitants were boarding transport vessels, their possessions limited to what they could carry. Drone footage showed abandoned homes, hydroponics facilities left to wither, and manufacturing centers powered down. All for show. "Status report," Liu demanded, his voice cutting through the hum of computers and anxious murmurs of his staff. Colonel Jensen stepped forward. "Operation Compliance proceeding on schedule, sir. 83% of designated colonies show visible evacuation activity. Council observers are documenting and reporting apparent compliance." "And Second Dawn?" Jensen lowered his voice. "Proceeding as planned. Ghost transports are rerouting 90% of evacuees to the dark systems. Construction of deep bases at Barnard's Shadow and Proxima Umbra is ahead of schedule. The stealth fleet has successfully relocated to holding positions beyond Council sensor arrays." Liu nodded. A career military man with more combat decorations than he cared to count. He had never imagined his greatest battle would be fought with paperwork and deception, rather than pulse weapons. What about the research division? Dr. Amina Rahal reports the xenobiology archives are secure. Her team has compiled comprehensive biological profiles on 87% of council species. Liu's expression remained impassive, but inwardly, he felt a twinge of discomfort. They were preparing for war against the very civilizations that had, until recently, been their neighbors and trading partners. Collecting biological weaknesses felt like crossing a line, but the council had drawn the first line when they voted for Exile. And the AI situation? Jensen handed him a secure tablet. All registered artificial intelligences have been officially decommissioned as demanded. Public networks show compliance with shutdown protocols. And unofficially, the advanced units have been transferred to isolated quantum matrices within the dark systems. Development continues under Dr. Rahal's supervision. Lau returned the tablet. Have Captain Diaz report to me when she returns. We need to coordinate our public response. Yes, sir. There's one more thing. Jensen hesitated. We've received a communication from the frontier. Governor Chen of the Tau Ceti settlement is expressing concerns about Second Dawn. Liu's jaw tightened. Specifics. He's questioning the morality of our deception. Says we should appeal the council's decision through legal channels rather than preparing for confrontation. Legal channels, Liu repeated flatly. The same council that voted us into exile will suddenly have a change of heart if we file the right paperwork? There are others who share his view, sir, particularly among the frontier colonies that maintained closer ties with non-human worlds. Liu turned back to the holographic display, where the evacuation continued its carefully choreographed performance. Remind the governor that legal appeals were exhausted before the vote was called. 3 years of diplomatic efforts failed. Now we face extinction or exile. And if he persists? Liu watched as a family boarded a transport, a small child clutching a stuffed animal as they ascended the ramp. The ship would appear to head toward Earth, but would actually divert to a hidden installation where they would begin a new life, one of hardship and secrecy, but with purpose. Bring him in, Liu said finally. We can't risk descent at this stage, but treat him with respect. He's scared, not traitorous. As Jensen departed, Liu expanded the holographic display to show the broader galaxy. Council worlds glowed green, spanning over 6,000 stars across 8 spiral arms. Human colonies, the official ones, were highlighted in blue, a modest cluster of 67 systems that would soon be abandoned. What the Council didn't see were the red markers, invisible on official charts, representing 23 dead systems where no life had evolved and no resources had warranted colonial interest. Perfect hiding places for a civilization preparing to either fight back or disappear forever. Liu zoomed in on one such system, a dim red dwarf orbited by lifeless, radiation-baked planets. Beneath the toxic atmosphere of the Second World, human engineers were already constructing vast underground complexes. Similar operations were underway throughout the galaxy's forgotten corners. Second Dawn, he murmured. Either our resurrection or our tomb. Captain Elena Diaz felt the artificial gravity shift as her diplomatic vessel decelerated into Earth's orbital space. Through the viewport, she watched as massive colony ships prepared for departure, their holds filled with the belongings of displaced families and the equipment needed to establish new lives beyond the boundary. Her aide, Lieutenant Rivera, approached with a data tablet. Latest public announcement from the Council, he said, offering the device. Elena skimmed the text, her expression darkening. Humanity's withdrawal represents a necessary correction to maintain galactic harmony, she read aloud. The Council acknowledges the disruption to human activities, but maintains that disciplined contraction will ultimately benefit Earth's long-term development. She handed the tablet back with barely controlled anger. Disciplined contraction, as if they've prescribed a diet rather than forced relocation of billions. Public response has been mixed, Rivera noted. Most follow the government line about temporary setback, but demonstrations have broken out in New Shanghai and the Atlantic Arcology. Can you blame them? Many are leaving homes their families have occupied for generations. The ship's comm system chimed. Captain Diaz, General Liu requests your presence at command immediately upon docking. Acknowledged, she replied, gathering her formal diplomatic attire. She had changed out of her council presentation uniform, a symbolic gesture of transition from hopeful negotiator to... what, exactly? Accomplice to the greatest deception in human history? As they docked with the orbital station, Elena caught sight of a Zirian observation vessel, maintaining position at the edge of lunar orbit. Council watchers, monitoring compliance. Let them watch, she thought. Let them believe. The command briefing room felt claustrophobic despite its size. Elena sat beside General Liu at the circular table, facing the projected images of colonial governors and military leaders from across human space. We continue the public evacuation as planned, Liu was saying. Colony ships depart according to schedule, making no attempt to conceal their trajectories toward the boundary worlds. Meanwhile, our actual population transfers to the dark systems will proceed under stealth protocols. Governor Rajiv from Alpha Centauri, a traditionally autonomous colony, spoke up. My people are asking questions. Families are being separated. Some refuse to leave. We can't force compliance, Elena acknowledged. But those who remain in known colonies after the deadline will have no protection. The Council has been explicit about enforcement. And those who question the Second Dawn strategy? This came from Governor Chen of Tau Ceti, recently arrived under escort. His expression conveyed barely concealed disapproval. Elena met his gaze through the projection. Governor, I understand your concerns. I spent 3 years attempting diplomatic solutions. I believed in the process, but the Council made its decision long before the vote was called. So we abandoned diplomacy for deception and militarization. Is that the legacy we wish to leave? General Liu leaned forward. Governor, we're not abandoning diplomacy. We're ensuring we'll be alive to resume it from a position of strength. Chen's image flickered as he shook his head. There are council members who sympathize with us. The Arcturians, the Solani Confederation. Who abstained rather than oppose our exile? Liu interrupted. Sympathy without action is meaningless. Elena raised a hand to prevent further argument. We continue on both fronts. Public compliance while we prepare alternatives. Dr. Amina Rahal will brief us on the latest findings from the Xenobiology Division. The projection shifted to show a dark-skinned woman with tight curls, framing an intense face. Dr. Rahal nodded in greeting. My team has completed analyzing biological samples from 87 council species, she began. We've identified specific vulnerabilities that could be exploited if military conflict becomes unavoidable. Governor Chen's image reappeared, his expression troubled. We're developing biological weapons. Defensive countermeasures, Rahal corrected. And yes, potentially offensive capabilities. I take no pleasure in this work, Governor, but I'd rather have options we don't use than need options we don't have. What about the AI research? Asked Admiral Chang from the Jupiter Command. Rahal's expression remained neutral. All registered artificial intelligences have been decommissioned as ordered. However, we've preserved the core matrices in isolated systems beyond Council monitoring. Development continues on the prediction models and defense algorithms. The briefing continued, detailing the progress of bunker construction in the dark systems, resource allocation for the displaced populations, and maintenance of the stealth fleet. Throughout it all, Elena noticed the growing division among the leadership, between those fully committed to the deception and those harboring moral reservations. As the meeting concluded, she remained behind with General Liu. "Chen will be a problem," Liu said once they were alone. Elena sighed. "He's not wrong to question what we're doing. I question it myself every day." "Having doubts, Captain?" "Constantly. But doubting doesn't mean I see a better alternative." She stood and moved to the window overlooking the city below, where evacuation preparations were visible even from this height. "We're lying to the Council, to our own people, and to ourselves if we pretend this doesn't change us." Liu joined her at the window. "History is written by survivors. Elena, if we fail, there won't be human historians left to judge our methods. And if we succeed through deception and potential warfare, what kind of history will we write?" Liu had no answer for that. 6 months into the exile period, Elena found herself on the bridge of a stealth transport, bound for Proxima Umbra, the largest of the Dark System installations. Officially, she was touring the boundary worlds to assess settlement progress. In reality, she was delivering sensitive xenobiological data, too valuable to transmit even on quantum-encrypted channels. The ship dropped out of FTL at a safe distance from the dim red dwarf star. No casual observer would have detected anything unusual about the system. A common red dwarf with 3 unremarkable planets. The innermost, a radiation-baked rock. The outer, 2 frozen wastelands. But as they approached the middle planet, the ship's sensors revealed the truth. Beneath the toxic atmosphere and barren surface, humans had been busy. "Approaching Umbra Station," the pilot announced, receiving clearance codes. The transport descended through swirling clouds of sulfur compounds, eventually reaching a massive concealed hangar built into the side of an ancient impact crater. As they landed, Elena marveled at what humanity had accomplished in secret. A fully functioning underground city carved from the planet's crust. Dr. Amina Rahal was waiting as Elena disembarked. The xenobiologist looked tired but energized, her eyes bright with purpose. "Captain Diaz, welcome to Proxima Umbra. I hope your official tour of the Boundary Worlds was convincing." Elena smiled thinly. "I gave the Council observers exactly what they expected. Desperate humans struggling to establish basic infrastructure on overcrowded planets. They walked through bustling corridors where engineers, scientists, and civilians moved with surprising order. Unlike the chaotic refugee scenarios being staged at the Boundary Worlds, here there was purpose, organization, and even optimism." "How are the new arrivals adapting?" Elena asked, as they entered a secure lift that would take them deeper into the installation. "Better than expected. The psychological division had predicted more cases of confinement anxiety. But the underground parks and simulated daylight cycles have helped." Rahal gestured to the passing levels, visible through the lift's transparent walls, hydroponics gardens, living quarters, and manufacturing centers. "And your research?" Rahal's expression turned serious. "That's why I asked you to come in person. We've found something unexpected, something that changes everything." The lift stopped at a heavily guarded level marked Xenoarchaeology. Rahal led Elena through security checkpoints until they reached a laboratory where a team of scientists were examining what appeared to be alien artifacts. 3 months ago, an exploration team was mapping potential new dark systems for expansion, Rahal explained. They discovered these ruins on a dead world near the galactic rim, far beyond Council space. Elena approached a central table where fragments of metallic material were arranged in a pattern. "What am I looking at?" "A warning," Rahal said simply. "And perhaps our salvation." She activated a holographic display showing complex symbols. "These don't match any known Council language. They're older, much older. We believe they belong to a civilization that predates the Council by millions of years." "Precursors," Elena breathed. "Exactly. We've been calling them the architects. and we've partially decoded their message. Rahal manipulated the display to show a simulation. They were fleeing something, a force they called the Devourers, an entity or species that consumed entire star systems. The simulation showed a wave of darkness spreading across a galaxy model, stars blinking out in its wake. Is this theoretical, historical? Both, Rahal said grimly. The architects recorded this as history, but warned of cyclical returns. Based on their timeline. She hesitated. The Devourers should be approaching the galactic rim within the next 50 years. Elena felt a chill, despite the laboratory's comfortable temperature. And the Council knows nothing of this. If they do, they've never shared it. But there's more. Rahal led her to another section, where larger artifacts were being studied. The architects didn't just leave warnings. They left weapons. The device before them resembled nothing Elena had seen before, a spiral construction of unknown metal with pulsing energy at its core. We're still understanding the principles, but it appears to generate artificial singularities, controlled black holes that can be directed as weapons. Rahal's voice held both awe and apprehension. Captain, if the Devourers are real and returning, the Council's squabbles over territorial boundaries will become meaningless, and humanity, exiled to the rim, will be the first line of defense. Elena stared at the ancient weapon, possibilities racing through her mind. Does General Liu know? I've sent preliminary reports, but this is why I needed you here. As our diplomatic lead, you understand the implications for our relationship with the Council. Elena nodded slowly. We need to decide whether to warn them and risk revealing our deception, the dark systems, our continued AI development. If this threat is real, keeping it secret could doom the entire galaxy, including us. Rahal gestured around the laboratory. This is one of 17 architect sites we've discovered so far, all with the same warning, all with fragments of their technology. We're piecing it together, but we're running against a clock we can't precisely read. Elena's diplomatic training had never prepared her for this level of complexity. A potential extinction-level threat, ancient alien technology, and the moral question of whether to warn the very civilization that had cast them out. Continue your research, she said finally. I need to consult with Command. In the meantime, accelerate development of these weapons. If the Devourers are coming, someone needs to be ready. As they left the laboratory, Elena asked, Is there anything else I should know? Rahal hesitated. One thing. We're not alone in Exile. Meaning? We've detected small settlements of non-human species beyond the boundary. Other exiles, civilizations the Council deemed problematic and pushed to the margins over the centuries. Have you made contact? Limited. They're understandably suspicious of humans. But if the Devourer threat is real, we may need all the allies we can find, even those who share our outcast status. Elena felt a glimmer of hope amidst the overwhelming revelations. Arrange a secure meeting. It's time we introduced ourselves to our fellow exiles. The diplomatic vessel emerged from FTL at the coordinates provided by Dr. Rahal's team. Elena stood on the bridge, flanked by a small security detail and xenolinguist specialists. Before them floated what appeared to be a collection of asteroid-like structures, connected by glowing energy conduits, a hidden outpost of the Zephyrians, a species exiled by the Council nearly 70 years earlier for their unsanctioned technological research. We're being scanned, reported the tactical officer. Elena straightened her uniform. Open a channel. Standard diplomatic protocols. The view screen activated to show a blue-skinned humanoid with distinctive ridge patterns across a broad forehead. 4 eyes regarded them with obvious suspicion. I am Captain Selnor of the Zephyrian Remnant. The alien stated in accented but clear galactic standard. You have entered sovereign territory. Humans. State your purpose or retreat. Elena stepped forward. Captain Selnor, I am Captain Elena Diaz of Earth Defense Command. We come seeking dialogue between exiles. Selnor's upper eyes narrowed while the lower pair widened. An expression Elena couldn't interpret. So the rumors are true, Selnor said. The mighty humans have fallen from the Council's grace. How unexpected. There was no mistaking the bitter satisfaction in the Zephyrian's tone. Elena maintained her diplomatic composure. We believe we have discovered information that concerns all sentient life in the galaxy, including those the Council has cast aside. I request permission to dock and speak in person. Selnor conferred with unseen advisors before responding. Permission granted, but your escort remains aboard your vessel. You may bring one aide only. The transmission ended abruptly. Not the warmest welcome, muttered Lieutenant Rivera. They've survived 7 decades beyond the boundary, Elena replied. Caution has kept them alive. The interior of the Zephyrian outpost revealed ingenious adaptation to limited resources. What had appeared to be random asteroids were in fact carefully hollowed and connected habitats, each serving specific functions. Selnor led Elena and Rivera through curved corridors, where other Zephyrians watched with a mixture of curiosity and hostility. Your people adapt quickly, Selnor noted as they entered what appeared to be a command center, already establishing hidden bases while maintaining the appearance of compliance. The Council believed humans would struggle for decades to resettle. Elena raised an eyebrow. You've been monitoring us? As you've been monitoring us, Exile teaches vigilance. Captain Diaz. They reached a conference area where several other Zephyrians waited, including an elder whose ridges had faded to pale blue with age. This is Elder Thassav, our settlement's founder and original exile, Selnor explained. The elder studied Elena with all 4 eyes. I never expected to meet humans as equals, he said, his voice raspy with age. The Council's favored children, brought low at last. We were never their children, Elena replied evenly. Merely the newest addition they hadn't yet found reason to fear. This earned a ripple of appreciative murmurs from the assembled Zephyrians. You mentioned information that concerns all sentient life, Selnor prompted, gesturing for Elena to be seated at the conference table. Elena activated a portable holographic projector, displaying the architect ruins and the decoded warnings about the Devourers. As she explained the discoveries and their implications, she watched the Zephyrians' reactions shift from skepticism to growing alarm. When she finished, Elder Thassav spoke first. We have encountered similar ruins. Though we lack the resources to fully investigate them, we dismiss them as historical records, not current warnings. If these Devourers are approaching now, the entire rim is threatened first, Selnor added, including all exile settlements. Not just exiles, Elena emphasized. Eventually, all galactic life, which brings me to my proposal. She outlined a bold suggestion. An alliance of the exiled, combining the resources and knowledge of all outcast species to prepare for the coming threat. Humans are not the only ones the Council has banished, she concluded. The Lutrians, the Vex Collective, the Meridian Mines, all pushed beyond the boundary for various transgressions. Together, we might stand a chance against what's coming. Selnor exchanged glances with the elder. And after? If we help humans prepare, what guarantee do we have that you won't simply use this alliance to force your way back into Council space? No guarantee, Elena admitted. Only a promise that we face the same fate. My species has no more desire to be devoured than yours. The elder leaned forward. Show us these weapons you've discovered. Elena hesitated, then displayed the schematics for the Architect's singularity generators. We're still learning how they function, but preliminary tests confirm their power. A murmur of excitement passed through the Zephyrians. Selnor's 4 eyes gleamed with interest. The very research that led to our exile, he noted. Manipulation of space-time fabric. Then perhaps you can help us accelerate development, Elena suggested. Elder Thasiv raised a gnarled hand. We will consider your alliance, Captain. But first, we must verify your claims about these devourers. Our scientists will need access to your findings. Arranged, Elena said promptly. And in return, we would appreciate any information about other exile groups you've encountered. Selnor nodded slowly. There is a gathering place, a neutral port at the edge of charted space. The Council knows nothing of it. Representatives from most exile factions pass through eventually. We can arrange introductions. As the meeting concluded, Selnor escorted Elena and Rivera back toward the docking area. You should know, the Zephyrian captain said quietly, that not all exiles will welcome an alliance with humans. Some blame your species for the Council's increasingly restrictive policies. Understandable, Elena acknowledged, but common threats make strange allies. Indeed. Selnor paused before the airlock. One more thing, Captain Diaz. If these devourers are real, and if we somehow survive them, what then? What becomes of exiles in a grateful galaxy? Elena considered the question carefully. That's for all of us to decide together. But I believe no species should face exile for the crime of progress. Selnor's upper eyes crinkled in what might have been a smile. Perhaps humans and Zephyrians have more in common than either would care to admit. General Liu reviewed the reports from Captain Diaz with growing concern. The discovery of the Architect ruins and the potential devourer threat had added a new dimension to humanity's exile, one that transformed their secret preparations from defiance to necessity. 17 Architect sites, all with consistent warnings, he murmured, pacing his office at the Barnard Shadow installation. And now potential allies among other exiled species. His aide, Major Chen, nodded. Dr. Rehal's team has accelerated development of the singularity weapons. The Zephyrian scientists have made significant contributions to the power regulation systems. And what of our friend, Governor Chen? Has he been informed of these developments? Yes, sir. His opposition to Second Dawn has diminished in light of the devourer evidence. Liu stopped pacing. Good. We need unity now more than ever. He turned to the holographic display showing the status of human installations throughout the dark systems. What's our readiness level? Population transfers are 87% complete. The official evacuations to boundary worlds continue on schedule for Council observers. Military preparedness is at 63% of target. We've prioritized defense systems for the dark system settlements. Liu nodded, studying the display. 23 primary installations, housing nearly 14 billion humans in concealed bunkers, artificial habitats, and underground cities. The greatest deception in history, executed while maintaining the appearance of compliance with the Council's exile order. And our new allies? The Alliance of the Exiled now includes representatives from the Zephyrians, Lutrians, and 3 smaller exile groups. Negotiations continue with the Vex Collective. And the Architect weapons? Major Chen's expression grew troubled. Test deployments have been dramatic, sir. A controlled singularity collapsed an uninhabited moon in the Proxima Umbra system. The power requirements are enormous, but the destructive potential exceeds anything in our arsenal. Liu considered this information silently. The weapons left by the ancient architects could defend against the approaching devourers, or could give humanity the power to challenge the Council itself. The temptation to use such weapons for revenge, rather than protection, was a moral hazard he couldn't ignore. Implement additional security protocols for the weapons research, he ordered. Full psychological evaluations for all personnel with access. We're developing these for defense, not conquest. Yes, sir. As Major Chen departed, Liu returned to the window overlooking the vast underground complex. Thousands of humans move through the artificial daylight, building a new civilization beneath the surface of a dead world. Children who had been born on Earth now played in simulated parks. their parents working to ensure they would have a future at all. His comm unit chimed with an urgent signal. "Lou here." "General, this is Captain Selnor of the Zephyrian Remnant. Our deep space sensors have detected anomalies at the galactic rim. Energy signatures matching the architect descriptions of Devourer scout vessels." Lou's blood ran cold. "Time frame?" "Approaching faster than predicted. First contact possible within 18 months rather than decades. Send all data to our science teams immediately. I'll alert Captain Diaz and the Alliance leadership." As the communication ended, Lou stared at the artificial sky projected on the cavern ceiling above the installation. 18 months. After years of planning for a distant threat, suddenly, they were facing imminent contact with an enemy that had terrified even the ancient architects. "So it begins," he murmured. "Not with the Council, but with something far worse." The Exile period was nearing its end when the first Devourer scout ships breached the galactic rim. Elena stood in the combined command center of the Alliance of the Exiled, watching as sensor data streamed in from observation posts scattered throughout the frontier. The massive holographic display showed 3 dark shapes moving through the void between stars, vessels of unknown configuration that seemed to absorb rather than reflect light. They moved with purpose toward the nearest inhabited systems. Ironically, the boundary worlds where humans were supposedly resettling. "They're targeting populated areas," noted Captain Selnor, who had become humanity's closest ally among the exiled species. Specifically, the human boundary colonies. "Because they're the most visible," Elena replied. "The Council's observation posts record all activity there. The dark systems remain hidden." General Liu, present via secure holographic link from Barnard's Shadow, studied the tactical display. "This is our moment of decision. If we deploy the Architect weapons to defend the boundary worlds, we reveal our deception to the Council. If we don't, millions of our people die, along with the Council observers stationed there." The Alliance Leadership Council, representatives from each exiled species, exchanged glances. The Lutrian ambassador, a sleek, furred humanoid, spoke first. "The Council abandoned all of us to our fate. Why should we reveal our strength to save them?" "Because this isn't about the Council," Elena argued. "It's about all life in the galaxy. The Devourers won't stop at the boundary worlds." General Liu nodded. "Captain Diaz is right. This is the moment Second Dawn was created for, not just humanity's survival, but a new beginning for all sentient life." After brief deliberation, the vote was unanimous. The hidden fleets of the Alliance would deploy to defend the boundary worlds, revealing both their deception and their newfound power. "Transmit the activation codes to all fleet vessels," Liu ordered. "Deployment pattern Omega. Prioritize civilian evacuation from the boundary worlds." As the command center erupted into coordinated activity, Elena moved to a private communication terminal. She had one more task, perhaps the most important of all. "Open a direct channel to the Galactic Council chambers," she instructed the communications officer. "Priority override. Diplomatic emergency protocols." When Ambassador Kareth's scaled face appeared on the screen, his 4 eyes widened in surprise. "Captain Diaz, this is unexpected." "Ambassador, I'm transmitting data on an imminent threat to all Council worlds. 3 unidentified vessels have breached the galactic rim and are approaching the boundary colonies. We have reason to believe they represent an extinction-level threat called the Devourers." Kareth's expression shifted from surprise to suspicion. "And how would exiled humans possess such intelligence?" "That's a longer conversation, Ambassador. One we should have after addressing the immediate crisis." Elena's tone was firm but urgent. "Check your long-range sensors. Verify our data. Then prepare your defenses. You expect the Council to mobilize based on unsubstantiated claims from—" "Not claims," Elena interrupted, transmitting the sensor readings and architect translations. "Evidence. the same evidence that has prompted the Alliance of the Exiled to mobilize in defense of all galactic life, including those who cast us out. Before Kareth could respond, alarms sounded throughout the command center. Elena glanced at the tactical display to see the Devourer vessels accelerating toward the nearest boundary world. "They've begun their approach," she told Kareth. "You'll have visual confirmation within hours. Make your preparations. Ambassador, humanity will do what it must." She ended the transmission and turned to Selnor. "Are the fleet commanders ready?" The Zephyrian nodded, all four eyes focused on the tactical display. "Singularity weapons are charged and prepared for deployment. Human and Zephyrian vessels will lead the first defensive wave." Elena touched the Alliance insignia, now displayed on her uniform. A simple circle containing the stylized representations of each Exile species, united in common cause. "Then let's introduce ourselves to both the Devourers and the Council. It's time they learned what happens when you exile those you fear." The boundary world of New Terra had been established as the primary resettlement colony for human exiles, at least officially. Its population of 3 million was a fraction of what public records claimed, as most evacuees had been secretly diverted to the dark systems. Still, those who remained on New Terra were real people with real lives, now directly in the path of the approaching Devourer vessels. From the bridge of the EDS Defiance, Admiral Chang watched as the civilian evacuation ships launched from the planet's surface. The Defiance was one of humanity's most advanced warships, constructed in secret within the Proxima Umbra shipyards, and now decloaking in direct violation of the Exile Agreement. "Evacuation status?" Chang demanded. 40% complete, Admiral," reported his tactical officer. "Estimated 3 hours until full evacuation. The Devourers will reach weapons range in 90 minutes. Noted, his Zephyrian liaison. Commander Ixra. We must deploy the fleet now to establish defensive positions." Chang nodded grimly. "Signal all vessels. Defensive formation Theta. Singularity platforms to designated coordinates." He paused, aware of the historical significance of the moment. "And transmit our identification to the Council observation post. No more hiding." Across the New Terra system, ships began appearing as if from nowhere, the hidden fleet of humanity and their exile allies decloaking in a coordinated revelation. Sleek human destroyers, angular Zephyrian battlecruisers, and the organic-looking vessels of the Lutrians moved into formation around the planet. At the system's edge, massive platforms shimmered into visibility, the deployment systems for the Architect's singularity weapons, each carrying destructive potential beyond anything the Council races had developed. On the Council observation station orbiting New Terra, Xerian observer Virax stared in disbelief at the sensor readings. Where moments before there had been only civilian transport vessels, suddenly a military armada had materialized, ships of designs he had never encountered, bristling with weapon systems far beyond approved human technology. "Impossible," he whispered, his 4 eyes blinking rapidly in distress. The humans were compliant. Their military capability was neutralized. His aide, equally stunned, managed to activate the communication system. "Council Station to unidentified fleet. You have entered restricted space. Identify yourselves immediately." Admiral Chang's image appeared on their view screen. "This is Admiral Chang of the Earth Defense Force. You are observing the combined fleet of the Alliance of the Exiled. We have detected hostile forces approaching this system and are preparing defensive operations. We recommend you evacuate your station immediately." "Alliance of the..." Virax sputtered. "This is a violation of the Exile Agreement. The Council will..." "The Council will thank us," Chang interrupted, "when they understand what's coming. Evacuation ships are standing by to transport your personnel to safety. You have 30 minutes to comply before we can no longer guarantee your safety." As the transmission ended, Virax turned to his aide in shock. "Contact the Council immediately. The humans have deceived us all." In the Galactic Council chamber, emergency sessions had been called as reports flooded in from boundary worlds throughout the galaxy. Ambassador Kareth stood at the center of the chamber, addressing the assembled delegates with barely controlled fury. The humans have violated every aspect of their exile agreement. They have maintained military capability, developed forbidden technologies, and now threaten Council observation posts with these so-called devourer claims. Councillor Vexna's tentacles rippled with agitation. The sensor data from our observation posts is clear. Unknown vessels of enormous power are indeed approaching from beyond the rim. Whether they are these devourers or human allies attempting to intimidate us remains to be determined. The Arcturian representative stepped forward, compound eyes gleaming. We have analyzed the architect data transmitted by Captain Diaz. If accurate, these devourer entities represent an existential threat to all galactic life. Convenient, Kareth hissed. The humans face exile, then suddenly discover ancient warnings about a threat only they can defend against, using weapons that give them unprecedented military advantage. The debate raged across the chamber until a priority communication interrupted the proceedings. The central holographic display activated to show observer Virax, his image distorted by interference. Council, we are evacuating the New Terra station. The human fleet has engaged the unknown vessels, and the battle is... His transmission cut out momentarily before resuming. By the first stars, the weapons they're using. I've never seen anything like... The transmission dissolved into static as the chamber erupted in confusion. Kareth raised his clawed hands for order. Deploy Council defense forces to all boundary sectors. Whether these are devourers or human deception, we must... He was interrupted by another incoming transmission. This one, showing Captain Elena Diaz. Her uniform disheveled and face smudged, with what appeared to be ash or debris. Galactic Council. This is Captain Elena Diaz of the Alliance of the Exiled. The Devourer scout vessels have been engaged at New Terra. One has been destroyed, but two remain active. We've evacuated Council observers and civilian populations, but our forces have sustained heavy damage. Her image flickered as an explosion rocked wherever she was transmitting from. The architect weapons are effective but require precise targeting. We're transmitting all tactical data to Council military channels now. This is not a human problem or an exile problem. This is a galactic threat. We need coordinated response from all species. As her transmission ended, the Council chamber fell silent. The tactical data flowing into their systems confirmed what she had said. Unknown vessels of unprecedented power were attacking boundary worlds, and the combined exile fleet was the only force currently engaging them. After a moment of stunned silence, the Arcturian representative spoke. I move that we temporarily suspend the exile restrictions and coordinate with the Alliance forces to assess and counter this threat. Kareth's scales darkened with anger, but even he could not deny the evidence before them. Seconded, he said reluctantly. But this changes nothing about the humans' deception. Perhaps not, Vexna replied, her tentacles now still with calculation. But it may change everything about our future. The battle above New Terra raged for 27 hours. The Alliance fleet, revealing its full strength for the first time, deployed technology and tactics that stunned the Council observers who witnessed the engagement. Architect singularity weapons tore holes in space-time itself, consuming one devourer vessel entirely. The second was crippled by combined fire from human and Zephyrian warships, while the third retreated beyond the rim, but not before transmitting signals toward the intergalactic void. In the aftermath, Elena Diaz stood on the observation deck of the EDS Defiance, looking down at New Terra, where emergency teams from both Alliance and Council worlds now work together to treat the injured and repair critical infrastructure. General Liu joined her, his uniform bearing the new insignia of the Alliance of the Exiled. The Council's emergency session has concluded, he informed her. They voted to suspend the exile orders pending full investigation of the Devourer threat. Elena's expression remained neutral. And our deception, the Dark Systems? Officially condemned but tacitly accepted as necessary under the circumstances. The Arcturians are leading a faction arguing for full reinstatement of all exile species, while Kareth's hardliners demand continued restrictions. And unofficially? Lou almost smiled. Unofficially, they're terrified, both of the Devourers and of what we've built beyond their watching eyes. 23 fully developed systems, advanced technology, and alliances with species they thought broken and scattered. Elena turned from the viewport to face him. The retreating Devourer vessel was transmitting. Dr. Rahal believes it was calling for reinforcements. The Architect's records suggested as much. Scout vessels followed by harvester fleets. Then this isn't over. It's barely begun. Lou nodded solemnly. The Council has requested your presence as Alliance representative at an emergency summit. They want full disclosure on the Architect ruins, the Singularity weapons, and our Dark System infrastructure. Full disclosure, Elena repeated with a tired laugh. After years of secrecy and deception, suddenly they want the truth. The question is, how much do we reveal? The Dark Systems remain our greatest advantage, both against the Devourers and against potential Council betrayal. Elena considered this carefully. The Alliance had proven its worth in battle, but trust between exiles and the Council would not be rebuilt easily. We reveal enough, she decided. The Architect weapons, the Devourer threat, our alliance with other exiled species, but the full extent of our preparations, the locations of all Dark Systems, those remain classified until we have guarantees. Guarantees of what? That exile ends, not just for humans, but for all species. That progress and innovation are no longer crimes. That we build a galactic civilization that stands united against threats like the Devourers, rather than eating itself from within through fear and control. Lou nodded slowly. Ambitious demands from the outcasts. We're not outcasts anymore, Elena replied, looking back at New Terra, where Alliance and Council ships now orbited together. We're the front line, and soon enough, they'll understand why that matters more than any boundary or restriction. The Galactic Council chamber had been reconfigured for the emergency summit, where once the petitioner's platform had stood isolated at the center. Now, a circular table accommodated representatives from both Council worlds and the Alliance of the Exiled. Elena Diaz took her seat opposite Ambassador Kareth, flanked by Captain Selnor of the Zephyrians and the Lutrian representative. Dr. Amina Rahal sat beside her, prepared to present the scientific evidence regarding the Devourers and the Architect technology. Kareth opened the proceedings with obvious reluctance. This emergency session will address the imminent threat posed by the entities identified as Devourers and the cooperative measures necessary to protect galactic civilization. The careful avoidance of any acknowledgement of the Alliance's role in the recent battle did not go unnoticed. But Elena maintained her diplomatic composure. We begin with a full accounting of the recent engagement at New Terra, Kareth continued. Alliance Representative Diaz will present the tactical assessment. Elena stood, activating the holographic display to show the battle data. The Devourer scout vessels demonstrated several key characteristics that confirm the Architect warnings, she began. Their hulls absorb energy weapons. They utilize some form of gravitational manipulation for both propulsion and attack, and they appear to communicate through quantum-entangled signals that cannot be intercepted or blocked. She displayed footage from the battle, highlighting the moment when the Architect's Singularity weapon had consumed one of the Devourer ships. The only effective countermeasure we've discovered is the technology left by the Architects, specifically, controlled singularity generation that creates localized discontinuities in space-time. Kareth's eyes narrowed. Technology that your alliance developed in secret, in violation of exile restrictions. Technology we discovered and adapted, Elena corrected firmly, without which New Terra and its observation post would now be destroyed. Before Kareth could respond, the Arcturian representative intervened. The immediate question is not how this technology was developed, but how it can be deployed to protect all worlds, Council and Exile alike. Dr. Rahal stood next. The architect ruins we've discovered suggest this isn't the first incursion by the Devourers. Their records indicate cyclical attacks spanning millions of years, with the architects eventually choosing to flee the galaxy rather than continue fighting. She displayed the translated architect warnings and star charts showing previous Devourer incursions. Based on the retreat trajectory of the surviving scout vessel and the signal patterns we detected, we estimate a larger Devourer fleet will reach the galactic rim within 6 to 8 months. The chamber filled with murmurs of alarm. Kareth's scales paled slightly, but he maintained his composure. If this assessment is accurate, the Council must consider all available defenses, including these architect weapons. He turned to Elena. The Alliance will share this technology with Council defense forces. It wasn't a question, but Elena treated it as one. The Alliance is prepared to coordinate defensive operations, utilizing the Singularity weapons. We propose joint command structures, integrating both Alliance and Council military leadership. Unacceptable, Kareth snapped. The weapons will be transferred to Council control. Ambassador, Elena replied calmly. The Singularity technology requires precise calibration and specialized training. Our teams have spent years mastering its operation. This isn't about control. It's about effectiveness. Captain Selnor spoke for the first time, his 4 eyes fixed on Kareth. The Zephyrians were exiled 70 years ago for researching similar technology. Research the Council deemed too dangerous. Now you demand control of far more advanced versions of those same systems? The irony was not lost on the assembled delegates. Kareth shifted uncomfortably. What do you propose, then? Elena leaned forward. A new compact between the Council and the Alliance. Joint defense operations against the Devourer threat. Shared technology development. And most importantly, an end to the exile policy for all species. You would use this crisis to force Council concessions? Kareth's voice rose in indignation. No, Ambassador, Elena replied steadily. I would use this crisis to build a stronger, more unified galaxy, one where innovation is not punished by exile, where cooperation replaces fear, and where all sentient species stand together against existential threats. She gestured to the Alliance representatives beside her. The Zephyrians, the Lutrians, humans. We've all faced exile for different reasons, but we've found strength in unity. Imagine what the entire galaxy could accomplish with the same approach. The Arcturian representative's compound eyes gleamed with approval. I support Captain Diaz's proposal. The recent battle has demonstrated both the severity of the Devourer threat and the effectiveness of the Alliance response. Other councilors began to voice similar sentiments, until Kareth raised his hand for silence. The Council will consider this proposal, he conceded reluctantly. In the meantime, joint defensive preparations will proceed under combined command. Alliance representatives will work with Council military leaders to deploy and operate the Singularity weapons. It was a temporary compromise, but Elena recognized it as a significant victory. The exile barrier had been breached, not by force, but by necessity. As the summit continued into discussions of tactical deployments and defense strategies, Elena exchanged glances with Captain Selnor and Dr. Rahal. The path ahead would not be easy. The Devourer threat remained grave, and reconciliation with the Council would require time and trust building. But for the first time since the exile vote, humanity and its allies had a clear path forward, not as outcasts or fugitives, but as essential partners in galactic survival. 6 months later, Elena stood on the observation deck of Nexus Station, a massive joint facility constructed at the galactic rim to coordinate the defense against the approaching Devourer fleet. Below her, ships from both Alliance and Council worlds moved in coordinated patterns, conducting training exercises for the coming battle. Dr. Rahal joined her, carrying data tablets filled with the latest intelligence. The scout reports are confirmed. The main Devourer fleet has entered the outer detection grid, 47 vessels, each significantly larger than the scouts we encountered. Elena nodded grimly. Deployment status? Singularity platforms are at 84% operational readiness. The joint fleet has completed final integration exercises. The Dark System evacuation plans are ready if the defensive line fails. The months since the New Terra battle had been a whirlwind of activity. Diplomatic negotiations with the Council, technological sharing, selective but significant, and massive military preparations. The Dark Systems remained partially secret, with only key Council representatives aware of their full extent, a compromise that satisfied neither side completely, but maintained the balance of power. "And the new treaty?" Elena asked. Rahal allowed herself a small smile. "Final ratification scheduled for next week. The Galactic Accord will officially replace the Council Charter, with full membership for all formerly exiled species." It was more than Elena had dared hope for when the Exile vote had first been called. The Devourer threat had forced the galaxy to confront its fears and prejudices, to recognize that diversity and innovation were strengths, not dangers to be controlled. General Liu appeared on the observation deck, now wearing the insignia of the Joint Defense Command, a merged authority of Alliance and Council military leadership. "The command staff is assembled," he informed them. "Final strategy review begins in 10 minutes. As they moved toward the command center, they passed representatives from dozens of species, Council members working alongside the formerly exiled, united by common purpose. "Do you ever think about how differently this could have gone?" Rahal asked quietly. "If we had simply accepted exile, settled the boundary worlds as ordered?" Elena considered the question as they entered the bustling command center. On the main display, the approaching Devourer fleet appeared as a formation of dark signatures against the backdrop of stars. "We would have been the first to fall," she replied, "and the Council would have learned too late what was coming." Liu nodded in agreement. Second Dawn saved more than just humanity. It saved the galaxy, whether they wanted saving or not. As the command staff took their positions around the strategic display, Elena found herself standing beside Ambassador Kareth, who now served as the Council's liaison to Joint Defense Command. Their relationship remained formal, but had evolved from antagonism to grudging respect. "Captain Diaz," Kareth acknowledged with a slight incline of his scaled head. "Your projections for the initial engagement?" "Heavy casualties regardless of outcome," she replied honestly. "But with the combined fleet and the singularity weapons, we have a fighting chance. Better than the architects had." Kareth's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, no longer a gesture of dismissal, but one of contemplation. "The Council voted for Exile believing it would contain humanity's unpredictable nature. Instead, it placed you precisely where you needed to be to discover the architect warnings. Sometimes being cast out is exactly what's needed to gain perspective," Elena observed. "Though I wouldn't recommend it as standard diplomatic procedure." The faintest approximation of a smile crossed Kareth's alien features. "Indeed not. Though I wonder if the Devourers will appreciate the irony that those the galaxy feared most are now its primary defenders." Elena turned her attention to the tactical display, where the combined fleet of the galaxy, Council and Exile alike, prepared to make its stand against the approaching darkness. "They wanted us gone," she said quietly. "Instead, we'll be the ones who stay." Around them, the command center hummed with activity as final preparations were made. Beyond the station, the singularity platforms powered up, their spiral configurations glowing with energy drawn from the very fabric of space-time. Ships from 100 worlds moved into defensive formations, weapons primed and shields raised. The exile had ended. The real test was about to begin. And humanity, along with all those who had once been cast aside, would face it, not from the margins, but from the very front lines of galactic defense. Not as outcasts, but as guardians of a civilization that had nearly thrown them away. The Galactic Council had voted to exile Earth. Humans hadn't waited to be told twice. They had prepared, they had built, they had formed alliances. And now they would stand, for themselves and for a galaxy that was, finally, truly theirs to call home.